We are so passionate that we shut down the internet. No, as it came up on an hour. That was so funny.
But the thing is, we're not, you know, and the point is you have, there's so much to talk about.
Yeah.
And so back to, let's just kind of go back to where we were.
Yeah,
to me, it's that whole thing of Black women should not be giving out anything for free right now. You have been giving out things for free for centuries.
On the cost of other people's backs.
It is just ridiculous. So to me, what we all need to be doing, and certainly what we're doing of Women of Color and Wellness, has always been to amplify the voices of Black women in yoga and wellness.
Yep.
And so for me, what can people do today for you? They can buy your book. Would you mind typing your book? Because someone asked us that.
Yeah.
Dianne. So can you type your book and your YouTube video?
Yeah.
And subscribe. Don't just go and look at Dianne's videos. Actually subscribe.
And share.
And share.
And comment.
And share. So can you just put all of your details in? I mean, I've got it, you know, just your at Dianne Bondy Yoga, your YouTube video in here. And someone asked us for the title of your book as well. I mean, again, quite frankly, you can find all these things, but we will try to make it easy.
Yes. And I'll give you my website because you can find everything there.
Yeah.
DianneBondyYoga.com, but I'll put it in.
Put it in. And to me, that's how we also, because a larger question, and that's what I'd love to kind of touch upon now with you, Dianne, is economic empowerment. Because to me, that is huge.
Yeah.
And just everyone posting about Black lives and suddenly jumping on the bandwagon. Yes, you know, that's wonderful. And this is the message that I have. It is wonderful that you awakened yesterday. You know, great. Good for you. I'm not going to take that away from people.
Right.
But what are you going to do tomorrow?
No.
What are you going to do next week? What are you going to do the week after, next month, and at the end of the year?
Yeah.
And that's my point. So talk to me about, you know, we've talked about so many things, but what you would, the change that you would like to see in yoga and wellness.
Well, I would like to see a lot more diversity. I'd like to see a lot of teachers of color, Black teachers, get the recognition for doing the work.
Right.
For the decades and the millennia that they've been doing the work. You know, when I came into the yoga sphere and the yoga celebrity, it was very much this yoga celebrity culture that was going on. And at the top of the pyramid of the yoga celebrity culture was always women who fit this idealized beauty standard. You know, Melly and I, who was on the talk a few minutes ago, have had this conversation over and over and over and over again in private. We've talked about this. Melly and I have been friends for 8 years now, and we've been talking about this ad nauseum, that the people who are at the top of the food chain in the yoga industry are conventionally attractive, are able-bodied, and are white, and white women in particular. And there's a lot of wonderful yoga teachers out there who never ascend to the Sean Corns of the world, or you name them, you know, the Andrea Sedmondley, all the people that were constantly featured on the front of Yoga Journal, to the exclusion of anybody else with any kind of body diversity or Black people at all. And the only person, it's only super recently that we saw the rise of Jessamine Stanley. Like, that is super recent. And as far as I can tell, is she not the first plus size queer Black woman to be featured on the front of Yoga Journal, which is a dying magazine, and a conversation for another day. I have lots of feelings on that that I have made very public. You can go and look up all the blog posts that I've written about them. So we don't even need to get into that there. But I would like to see what happens in yoga, and what I found to be true in yoga from the beginning of my yoga career, is the minute you are white and a yoga teacher, you are automatically elevated to celebrity status, whether you are a good yoga teacher or not. Whether you could, you know, teach a class to a multiple of different levels of people, or people with disabilities, or had any kind of skill. The minute that you were young, flexible, and white, you were automatically a celebrity. You were automatically picked up by clothing companies. You were automatically elevated to the status of expert. Like, let's even think about when the last time we saw a South Asian on the front of a yoga magazine. Like, why is it that is the only thing that we see, right? And how is it that when I opened my yoga studio here in town, I spent a lot of time fighting the idea that I wasn't qualified, right? Because I was a Black person.
Right.
And I'm actually going to post a article that I wrote about 5 years ago about my experience of discrimination within my own yoga community that I wrote for Yoga International a few years ago, where nothing has really, really changed around that. That I would have these other studio owners talking smack about me, and not respecting me as their equals. Do you know what I mean? Because of I can't figure it out because of my skin color, because I had more training than all of them.
Right.
So it was really interesting to me. What I would like to see is that we also elevate Black voices who have been doing the work within the yoga community. I'd like to see people like Dr. Cale Parker, who's doing work around stress and trauma that is linked to racism. Like, I'd like to see those voices be elevated. And to also, I'm kind of tired of this whole idea that white women get to speak about injustices and get to center themselves in the conversation, like we've seen, and I'm gonna name a name, like we've seen with Off the Mat and Sean Corn at the head of that establishment. They were one of the first people to start doing yoga and social justice. And about 4 years ago, I was at the Omega whatever conference with my husband, and I had one of those women come up to me and bless me. One of these white women come up to me and bless me for the work that I was doing in the community. So Suzanne Sterling came up to me and said, I want to thank you for the work you're doing, and like anointed me. And my husband gave her the side eye and gave me the side eye. And he was saying, how is it that I have to wait from validation from white yoga teachers to let me know that I'm okay to teach these things? Like, I was literally validated by her in that space, and I've never been more angry or irritated by it. And whenever I listen to Sean Corn talk about her work in the community, it's always with her in the center of that conversation, and nobody ever says anything about that. Like, when I'm hearing her talk, she's always talking about all this hard work she's doing and how far she's come and how much she's looked at her privilege. It's always that. It's never like centering another voice. And the people who are around her, I find, just keep elevating her up. And I just want to know, why is that a thing? Who in the Black community who teaches yoga, who's doing great work, can she elevate up? Right? Instead of always going, look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me. That's what I feel when I see that. And I know people are going to come for me, and her fans are going to come for me, and I'm okay with that.
Also, it doesn't matter. We're not here to tone police, certainly you or anybody else. I must say, I'm horrified by the anointing story.
Oh my God.
That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. My husband, you should have seen his face, because she was in front of me in some long flowy gown trying to look like Shiva Ray, and he was behind her and I was in front of her, and she was saying this to me, and he just cocked his head and looked at me, and I had to like literally step around her to stop from punching her in the face. Like, because that's where I was at in the moment. I was just like, really? I don't need your validation. Right?
Yeah.
I don't need your validation. And that was really hard for me. And Adeline, to this day, my husband brings it up. Remember that time you were at Omega and Suzanne Sterling anointed you for doing the work of inclusivity? You know what I mean? Do you remember that time? And I was in utter shock and awe. And when I did go to that whole event, my husband and I sat at a table by ourselves, and all the cool kids sat at another table and pretty much ignored us. Everybody at this conference was white. I was one of the only Black people at this conference. The two other Black people were there. When we found each other, we were hugging each other and going, wow, this conference is like a lot. And they were all talking about accessibility and racism and all these kinds of things. And I was just kind of like, it just felt icky. I remember saying, actually, Melanie was supposed to come with me, and she ended up getting sick. And I said to Melanie, I never need to go back and do any of these things anymore. Like, it really felt terrible to have to be validated in them.
And then from what you're saying, even to be an outcast, even then. So there's there's the fake validation, but then there's also, you're not included in the clique.
Totally.
You know? And I think, to me, that's the issue when we see the whitewashing of yoga and wellness, is the clickiness, you know, and that appropriation. And I think that, you know, white people in yoga and wellness have to be open to listening and learning.
Yeah.
specifically from people of color, but also from Black people more than ever now.
Yeah.
And I feel very, very strongly that, you know, Black people should be leading on anti-racism work, period. And that's just not today.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, I felt that way for a long time. Doing diversity and equity and inclusivity work is different to being an educator on anti-racism. Does that make sense?
It totally is. 100%. Agreed.
You know, so to me, I've been doing diversity, equity, and inclusivity work for the past 2 decades myself, Dianne.
Yes.
But
yes.
never would I call myself, and never will I suddenly package it, I'm the anti-racism educator. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because to me, let us actually look to the people who have experienced the most oppression and racism in our society. I'm sorry. And that is Black people. And in yoga and wellness, that is Black women.
Yes.
So let us look to them, period. The amount of arguments I've had this week with people trying to center themselves, whether it's white or whether it's non-Black. And what I keep saying to them is, refer the people that are clogging your direct messages to Black women in yoga and wellness, period.
Yes. Yes.
And I can't. You know what I mean? Because the fact that we are seeing other people that are non-Black, people of color, or white people centering themselves, honestly, sickens me. And
but I find that everyone, my friend's on here, not everyone is self-aware or humble enough to admit they don't know everything. And that is so true. And I'm just worried about the bandwagon jumping. I can't tell you how many of my Black friends who have gone through trainings around oppression and racism and all that work led by white folks who were then again triggered and victimized within that training, or expected to do the work of the heavy lifting within that training. Like they paid to be in this training, and then now all of a sudden they're also the expert in this training. And I mean, it's happened in my own trainings where I've been talking about what's going on in the world, and I've been looking to my other Black counterparts in the room to speak to their own experience, so that white folks in the room can see that this is not a one-off, this is not a one-time thing. Maybe they didn't mean it that way. Maybe you misunderstood how they took it. Maybe you didn't. And then I have to say to other people, does anybody else Black here have had this experience? And then they speak to their experience as well, because I want them to understand that this is not limited to one person, and that this is an ongoing thing. What I would like to see white folks do is make space for Black folks. I would like to step into a yoga studio and see other Black folks feeling safe enough to practice. I would like to go into studios and not have people move their mats or stop talking or do any of those things when I show up, or ask me. It doesn't happen so much anymore, but when I first started teaching, are you the teacher? Really? Or this idea that Black people don't do yoga. I just did a Black girl yoga this morning. So I reached out to all my teachers and all my friends, and I said, let's get together for a self-care Sunday. And I said, I'll put it up on Zoom. 5 of the people I think I had 8 people together, my friends, 1 from the UK, 2 from America, you know, all over the world came to my class this morning. And we talked about what it feels like to be a Black person during these times, and how hard it is for us to practice in a space without feeling othered. And so after I did the class, we opened the class with what we were feeling, what was going on with us individually. Then we did the practice, and then I let anybody talk to whatever was going on. Because my friend Keisha and I, we do yoga. We used to do yoga before lockdown every week. Her and I would come in and do yoga together and always have this weird experience wherever we practice. And so it was nice to be in the sisterhood of other Black women where we didn't feel weird, and we could be in the sisterhood. And I go, post-COVID, we can still get together on this platform and practice with each other, even if it can't happen in our communities. And I had 2 people literally in tears contact me after from the class and saying, I never felt more connected. I never felt more seen. I never felt more safe. And 2 of those people were yoga teachers who reached out to me and said, I've never felt this way, and that we could speak the truth to each other of how we feel in the moment without worrying about hurting people's feelings, without worrying about people thinking we're being, well, that's racist towards me if you don't trust me as a white person. History has told me I can't trust you.
Absolutely. And is
can't.
still telling me with your compliance through silence, with your tone policing, with your, you know, I mean, and the list goes on. And it's funny that you say that, because that's something I'd like to talk about with our viewers now. And for myself, as one of the few people of color in my community, I'm tired of the mask that we have to put on. Yeah. Just everywhere that we go, at the yoga studio, you know, people are afraid of me there. And I, you know, and the one black friend of mine that's also a yoga teacher that's doing amazing anti-racism work, her name's Satomi Mockett. She also said that a woman moved to a yoga mat. And the problem that we have with that is when you tell white people these instances, are you sure that's why?
Of course.
Aren't you being a bit sensitive?
Yeah, that's the other thing I love that people say to me.
Yeah.
That is the other thing I absolutely love. Why is it I'm being too sensitive and you're not being sensitive enough? That's my question for you. I'm always being too sensitive. Why can't we flip the script and say, why aren't you more sensitive to my needs as a person of color or a black person? Right? Why is it I'm always too sensitive? Why can't it be you're not sensitive enough?
Right.
I'm just
saying. Why don't you, right, as white folks, just listen? We're not expecting you to solve the problem because, you know, individually you can't. If you come together collectively, you can certainly contribute to it. But stop discrediting people of color when they share with you the daily racism, especially black people, that they face on a daily. No ifs, just listen.
Ands.
Just listen. Take it. It's not an personal attack on you.
It isn't.
And I think that's what they take it as. Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
But think about it, Dianne. That's yet again the issue of centering the conversation around themselves.
Yeah.
So please drop some more wisdom. What do you have? What do you have to say to, you know, white people that are really trying to do the work now? What is your message around how can they perhaps not consistently center every conversation around themselves?
That's the one thing that you said it best when you said, can you just listen and not go, that's nothing. Blah, 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 blah. I did a workshop for a studio in Toronto. It was like a 2-hour talk on Zoom, which my Zoom kept cutting out at the time. And it went horribly. It was by far the worst thing I've ever done online in terms of race because nobody was talking. All the white folks were silent in this conversation. I was trying to explain to them what was going on and engage them, and nothing was happening. And then when they got called out by the other black people in the workshop, their whole thing was, well, one time somebody made fun of me because I had curly hair.
Oh, God. I mean, what?
Wait, what?
Yeah.
And then I know somewhere in their mind they're trying to relate in some kind of way, but the point was missed. Do you know what I mean? The point was missed. If your conversation is if somebody's speaking their truth and your direct reaction is to put up your hand and say, well, this happened to me, then you're centering yourself in the conversation.
Right.
Instead of before you open your mouth, here's the gem. Before you open your mouth, self-study. Why am I opening my mouth to contribute to this conversation?
Right.
Is what I'm going to say helpful or useful, or am I going to continue to center myself in the conversation? Because that's what I always do. Because the conversation historically has always centered around me.
Yes.
And I'm uncomfortable with it being about somebody else. So maybe you might just want to announce that before you put up your hand. Hi, I'm actually going to center myself in the conversation here because I'm feeling really uncomfortable and I really just want it to be about me. It comes back again and again, again and again, again and again to self-study. If you're always talking about the work that you're doing, then you're centering yourself. If your activism has to be about making Black lives better and about creating equality and not feeling not assuaging your guilt. That's the other thing. Why am I putting up my hand? Because I feel guilty? because I want to prove to everybody I'm a nice person, that I didn't mean it.
Right.
Because it would be best if you just didn't say anything.
Right.
It would just be best if you didn't say anything. Your anti-racism work has to be about dismantling systemic racism and not about your personal journey to be a better person or your personal journey to feel better about yourself. It really has to be about, this world is stupid, this world is trash, and I need to figure out how to make it not this. I need to correct the errors that my ancestors made, because I now have the power and I have the understanding and I now have the skills, and I want to change it so that my friends can live and have all the benefits and all the privileges that I have. Right. That's what it has to be about. Not that I feel bad about myself, I probably should do something. Right. Because then you're going to inevitably center yourself in the conversation. And if the conversation you're drawing back to yourself, that's how you know.
Yeah. But it's interesting because to me, that is, and like you said, you know, if we look at yogic philosophy, we have the yamas, we have the niyamas, we have svadhyaya, self-study, which is part of that practice even before we get to the asana, the physicality of the practice. But to me, it's also very much about satya, truth.
Yes, truth.
Because to me, truth is revealing itself now in our society.
100%.
And people are revealing themselves. My sister, obviously, we gave Janessa a shout out. I know she's on here. Janessa, another person that you and I have the utmost respect for, and she's doing amazing work and has been doing the work for years.
Yeah.
And that's the point. You know, I was promoting all of you on Women of Color and Wellness before it became popular to do so. Janessa made a really good point. If you're confused about people's track record, look at their Instagram.
It's all there.
Oh my gosh. And when she said that to me yesterday, I was like, damn, that's true. Yep. Because it's suddenly, like you said, your local drugstore is Black Lives Matter yesterday, right? But let's then look at, okay, maybe, you know, you've awoken. Let's hope it lasts.
Yeah, I don't know.
But we need, exactly. We know that, Dianne. You know,
history has taught us.
Right?
Taught us.
You know, we know that. And I think that's the point. Let us learn from Black women and people of color that have been doing the work.
Yeah.
You know, and if you are a white person that feels that you now need to be the spokesperson on anti-racism, I would step down. Honestly, step down. Step down. Now's the time for you to step down. Now is the time for you to amplify Black voices in yoga and wellness.
If you want to do the work and you feel compelled, do not create your own brand of, you know, because, you know, the Yoga Alliance is now going to probably have some kind of course that white folks are going to have to take in order to see their own racism or understand it. And now we'll see who they will choose to run those courses. And now if you think this is your time to cash in on the next big trend, think again. Reach out to those people who are already doing the work. Say, how can I help? I'm really interested in this topic. I don't want to make it about me. I really want to help because I really do want to change the world for my children, for my, you know, whatever it is. I really want to have an impact. Can I work with you? What does that look like?
Thank you.
How can I help you? Right? Can I help you with fundraising? Can I promote your book for you?
There you go.
Can I pay you? Can I help you book gigs? Can I be at the gig and can I, you know, help people with bolsters? Can I be the person at the desk to sign in for registration? How can I support your work? How can I amplify your work? I don't need to make my own organization and pretend like I know anything, because you're actually going to hurt the cause. It's very much like when Elizabeth Warren put both feet in her mouth and started talking about how she had indigenous blood or First Nations, and then had to do had to be embarrassed with the test, the genetics test that said she had 3%, whatever it was, that let's just be clear, all white folks have, and none of that 3%, whatever First Nations place you got, was from a loving, caring relationship. It was from violence, which is why. And if you're going to own that part of who you are, then go out into the world and serve that community if they will let you, if they will even claim you. even if they will even claim you, because
Right.
you've never been there for them before. But when you thought it was going to be a political talking point,
Right.
it sure as shit became something that was relevant to you. So every time a white person says to me, well, I have 1/16 Cherokee, I'm like, really? So have you been to the Cherokee Nation, and how are you helping them out with your 1/16 Cherokee? You're weakening the cause by doing things like that. You're centering yourself once again. There's actual people who are suffering. You are not suffering. You are not suffering. So stop centering yourself. I remember having to have a conversation with, I always say, I've had so many falling down. It's funny now. And I don't care. I'm good to have them. Again, I need to call the pack.
I feel like that's what's happening to me now. You're culling the pack.
I'm just culling the herd. I'm going to go back to my Instagram page and nobody will be following me. But you know what I mean? It's just so funny because, I'm just kind of tired of that. Whenever you call somebody out on some BS, they get in their feelings and then they're like, you're the problem. And there's nothing more dangerous than white women's tears. They get people killed all the time.
And to that point, Dianne, my husband has actually been telling me how often it's actually white women that call the police on black men. And recently assaulted this black man that was with his child and wife and a dog, and told them, just horrifying. And he was saying, we were having this whole conversation yesterday where he was like, wow, white women are a problem. Because when they call the police in tears, it's the damsel in distress.
Oh,
and unfortunately, the black man is completely helpless in that situation and at the mercy. And we saw that with Amy Cooper.
And Christian Cooper.
I know. That threw me. But when he caught it, and you saw what she was doing.
And she ramped up her whole thing.
What she was doing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And remember that I don't know, The Independent covered this in the UK, and that's a newspaper that I trust. That she apparently considered herself to be a white liberal. And Dr. King said this himself.
Yeah.
The white moderate is a problem.
Yeah.
Because the Confederate flag people, we know you. Right?
I'm glad to know you. Hang your flag.
We see you.
Yeah.
We see you. We know you.
Yeah.
But it's the people that are claiming to be liberal. And we see a lot of white liberal women in yoga and wellness doing the damage. But the question that, really needs to be asked of them, and like you've been saying, is, are you willing to do the work?
Yeah.
And like we've been saying, are they willing to step aside now?
Yeah.
And really focus on not centering themselves in a conversation?
Yeah. Yeah. And that'll be the test. And what I'll be curious to see is what happens 6 weeks from now, what happens 3 months from now, what happens 6 months from now, and where we are. Where will we be a decade from now?
Right.
Well, my son, who's 15 now, he better not have a kid at 25. I want him to live some life.
You're right.
Kids, go out there and live some life. What will he say to his children?
Right.
Will he have the same conversation with his children that I have to have with him?
Right.
I'm very curious about all of this. It's very trendy right now to say Black Lives Matter. It's very trendy. If I had said this a month ago, somebody would have came for me so hard and crucified me and unfollowed me and then sent me a DM saying how disappointed they were in me. That would have totally happened. But like I said, now my local drugstore's got a sign out in front. It's just mind-boggling.
No, it's mind-boggling.
Scared because
it is. I know it is. It's that whole thing. I've seen people that were on the other side that are suddenly jumping to this side. And we have to ask the question, obviously, yes, we all are, none of us are perfect.
Yeah.
We're having a human experience if we look at this from yogic philosophy. But to me, there are some people that we cannot call in. Doesn't mean that we need to publicly go crazy and call everybody out. If that's your journey, good for you. That's not mine.
Right.
But my point is, let us see people, Dianne, for who they are now.
Yeah, exactly.
And to me, show us who you are. Not by suddenly jumping on the Black Lives Matter, but like you've said, by doing the deep-rooted work. This isn't going to change somebody overnight.
It's not. It's not. And that's the thing that scares me is the change overnight. Like, I know that we're like, again, I know that we've all been stuck at home, so safe at home, sheltered at home, whatever we're saying now, and that we've had all this time to consume all this media, right? And we've had all this time to now be outraged at the death of the tipping point, which is George Floyd. That's the tipping point, right? That we have all this time to be outraged and we're not distracted by other things because nothing else is going on. And that's why we're all marching. We're kind of all tired of being stuck in the house, and this is an excuse to get out. So I just want to see, when everything kind of returns to normal, how many of us will still be saying Black Lives Matter? Like, I just want to know. Like, the amount of people who have reached out to me that I haven't heard from in months or years and say they're thinking about me. You didn't care about me last week, so what's the difference this week? And all the times that I have, like I said, culled the herd on my Instagram by just putting up a post to say, 1,000 people leave me. Right when the 2016 election happened, there was a meme that went around with a Black woman crying with a white hand over her mouth, right? When the current president was elected to the highest office in the land. And let's not forget how he got here. Two ways. He got there by people not voting, and he got there by a majority of educated white women. I think it was 57%. And I put up this post saying, thank you. Now I know exactly where I stand. And I needed to know that, right? And how many people called me a bad Canadian? How many people called me out? I lost, like, I think 1,000 followers that day because I put up that post. I wonder where those people are now. I'm curious now that we've had 3.5 years of this and a rise in hate crimes and a rise in all of these things. If these people are now Black Lives Matter, that's very disingenuous. Because what has changed for you?
Exactly.
Nothing has changed. Everything's just being videoed and filmed, and all of a sudden you're jumping the fence. I think people can change their mind, right? I think people can change their mind. I think that can happen. But before you jump on the bandwagon, maybe examine why you felt the way you did 4 years ago, why you voted for this man 4 years ago, what has changed in your life that's made you change your mind, and how can you do your own work in your own way before you step out into the public realm and, create some drama for people. And I understand that we're all learning. These are brand new times. I understand all those things and that we're going to step in it. But when you step in it and get it wrong, can you please just step up and go, oh my God, I really screwed up here. I'm sorry. I really screwed up here. My intention was this, but my impact was this. And I need to do some more work before I step deeper into this. So I just need people to pump the brakes a little bit. Why are you so interested all of a sudden? It's not like this hasn't been going on the entire time.
And that's a really good point, because I feel exactly the same way now. It's not about jumping on a bandwagon. It's about taking pause, stepping back and saying, wow, I'm really confused.
That's okay.
And that's okay. That's okay,
completely okay.
That's absolutely fine. And to just be honest and say, you know what, I don't know. And I'm just going to take a moment again to listen and learn. You know what I mean? To listen and learn. And that's not what we're seeing. We're seeing all this jumping on bandwagons, reestablishing yourself and changing your business model and trying to sell this and trying to sell that. And it's just ridiculous. When really what you need to do, if you were not on the bandwagon of social justice before, now is a time to perhaps embrace the fact that you have a lot to learn. Right? But listen and learn, and listen and learn from Black voices. And I've said that throughout this entire
thing.
But I will continue to say it, and I've always said that. And to me, that is the least that we, myself included, as a non-Black person of color, can do. But it's funny, I have to say this. When I look around at people that are jumping on bandwagons, they don't have any Black friends. They don't know any Black people.
Or they have one Black friend. They might have that one Black friend.
Yeah, but they don't even have the one. They don't even have a lot of them don't even have the one. And to me, it's like, you really have to examine yourself. Does that make sense? and move away from that tokenism and move away from centering yourself and the tokenistic nonsense that you're spouting, and just take a moment to listen. And we know, Dianne, to bring this back to yoga and wellness, that I think it's very difficult for white women in yoga and wellness to not talk and just to listen. And I'm just, that's with pure honesty. You've seen this, I've seen this, this is our lives.
Oh my God. I had a whole fight with a person on my private Facebook page. And so many people were coming out of the woodwork going, can you just listen? Can you just listen? Can you just listen? And she couldn't listen.
No.
And then it was always, she's the victim, right? Like everybody was like, maybe stop talking and listen, maybe stop talking and listen. And she just couldn't do it. Like, it was just so interesting to me. But when you've always got the mic, it's hard to, like Superstar has said, it's hard to pass it. Like when you've always got the baton and you feel really entitled to the baton, it's really hard to pass it. It's just people have, oh yeah, my friend Sunny B Yoga remembered that. The whole thing was this ugly thing. And then of course she threatened to sue me and all kinds of stuff. So it's just like, you know, it's just unbelievable. And it's the experiences I've had in my local community and everywhere in the wellness space has been really interesting. And it's hard, right? Like it's really, these are really challenging times, right? Really challenging times. And it's hard to know who to believe and it's hard to know who to trust. So it's not unusual for us Black folks to maybe take a break and take a pause and see where you're going, right? Before you start to trust people. Because history has taught us that trusting people often gets us killed.
Yes.
Or often gets us harmed or often gets us, and we have to be really careful.
And I think you made a really good point about some people coming on the one course, I'm going to learn, and then I'm going to go and do my own course and I'm going to recreate the wheel. And so for those that are listening, we strongly encourage you not to do that.
Yeah.
Because there is, I've kept saying, there are plenty of Black women that have been doing this work for decades.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And so for me, it's about, let us amplify those voices and let us support those voices that aren't a part of large organizations, that aren't global ambassadors, that aren't, you know what I mean?
100%.
And that's why I have the greatest admiration for you, because you've been doing this work, Dianne, for 2 decades, and you have been speaking unpopular truths before it became popular to do so.
Yep.
Now I want to open up for questions. So we have one here. So please type them in the comments box. We've had loads from last time, but it was more comments. But here we have Rashmi. Hello, Rashmi.
Hi, Rashmi.
What keeps you from getting too cynical about the industry?
You know what? When I help my students, it's funny because I've had a lot of people reach out to me, and white women in particular reach out to me and say, I just want to let you know that you were one of my first teachers and that I appreciate what you taught me. And it was, I didn't know if I should come out and say this to you, but I just wanted to really let you know that your work has impacted me. And it just takes one person to say that to me that plugs my batteries in and recharges me that I'm actually making a difference in the world. And that's the way I don't let cynicism happen. There are, just to be clear, there are a lot of great people in the industry that I've had the privilege of knowing. You know, I wrote a blog and it started with, I love yoga, and I've had some triumphant moments in yoga and I've had some heartbreaking, I'm packing it in, this is a shit industry, I'm out kind of yoga. And then I remember it's not about the industry and it's not about individual people who haven't done the work, although they think they're yogis because they can do a handstand or whatever the fuck it is they can do, but that haven't looked at themselves, and that when that one person tells me, I never thought about it that way, I have a whole new perspective on whatever it is that the teaching is, then I know that person, that I'm making an impact. And the fact that I've made an impact, the fact that I see the culture shifting is what keeps me from being cynical. And I just weed out the people. I call it the spiritual weeding of my garden. I just weed out the people that I'm not going to change their minds, and that I'm not going to be their yoga teacher. And I had this one person say to me, well, you'll never be Michelle Obama or whatever. Like, I always say how great Michelle Obama is, what a great orator Michelle Obama is.
Well, she is.
You'll never be Michelle Obama, and I don't want to learn from you. And I'm like, bitch, I don't want to teach you. Like, you ain't my audience and you ain't paying me. So I don't need you. So please feel free to step to the side. And these are experiences I've had within the last 6 months. These are very recent experiences. So that, and then I just refocus to the people who are interested in what I'm talking about. I just refocus on my energy on people who are doing the work, because that's what feeds my soul. There's more people out there that are interested in doing the work and doing the right thing than there are, bandwagon jumpers and people with that kind of attitude. And I just kind of figure sooner or later karma will come for those people, or sooner or later they'll have an aha moment. And that has happened. I've had people have an aha moment and then slide into my DMs and said, you know what, I was a real asshole like 6 months ago, a year ago, 10 years ago. You probably don't remember me. You may have blocked me, because that's what happens. I end up blocking these people because your energy, I don't have time for your energy. I just don't have time. I don't have time. I think of social media as my living room. So if you come into my living room and piss on the carpet, you're going to have to leave.
Yeah,
like, clean it up and then get out. So,
Absolutely.
and I've had people message me in a roundabout way going, I've seen the error of my ways. And I think to myself, okay, I'm making a difference.
Exactly.
And that's how I keep from being cynical. And then I make people like you. We have these fantastic conversations, and my batteries get plugged in. And I surround myself with the best allies who will jump in front of me if I'm in a situation, who remind me of why we do the work. And that's how I stop from getting and
I think, and that's so true, because I've been feeling so disheartened. And then, we meet, and it's like that, your soul just comes alive,
It's true.
And I felt that so many people. So for me, it's almost like when we're really on the path of yoga, Dianne, for those of us that have been doing social justice work, just FYI, it was unpopular. When a person of color brings up race or decolonization or any of those things, it's not a popular vote.
No.
Nobody has wanted to hear about that until yesterday.
Oh, why are you being so negative?
Yeah.
Why are you being so sensitive?
Exactly. And so for me, it's that, okay, but when we're really focusing on yoga and unity, the divine brings us the right people.
That too,
right?
The people cross your path who are exactly supposed to be there and who are interested in learning from you. And even when I was having that horrible experience a few months ago, the people who are interested in learning from me were like, I bought the books you said I should buy. I'm going to read them. Do you mind if I ask you a couple of questions? And I'm like, of course not. I'm just excited you bought the book and you're interested in learning. So that was happening simultaneously while I was having these other two people carry on like assholes. So it was just really interesting to see the two dichotomy. So instead of focusing on what these two people were doing, I focused on that one person who was like, I'm here, I'm listening, tell me, I'm here, I'm listening, this is what I've learned, am I on the right path? You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely. Absolutely. And it's for me, and I really feel this way, my husband and I were having this conversation where, to me, this is really a situation where the emperor has no clothes. Really?
I've heard this. I've heard this.
Honestly.
Yeah, I've heard
this.
And
I'm just kind of really taking a moment to pause and step back and notice that.
Yeah.
Notice the people where it's clear that the emperor has no clothes.
Yes.
I don't need to say it. I don't need to do anything. It's being made clearly evident.
Yes.
And that, like you said, with the horrible experience that you had with those two yoga studios, the emperors have no clothes.
Yeah.
There you go. So people reveal themselves, and what we need to do in yoga and wellness is to listen. And okay, I see you. I'm not going to focus on that, though. I'm not going to give my energy to that, because I'm going to give my energy to this.
The trap that I tend to fall into, though, is that I start overthinking and over-processing through my yoga. Well, I have to have, compassion for the ignorant? They're ignorant. I need to have compassion for them. Well, maybe they're trying to learn, and then I stay too long in that energy, because I don't learn that the third time they both feet in their mouth should be like 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out. I should do that. I shouldn't keep thinking, okay, I think they're listening. Okay, I think they're changing. And then they do something and I'm crushed by it, or I'm triggered by it. And but that seems to be my MO. I'm triggered by it. I lose, like the bucket gets filled. I lose my shit epically, and I storm out, light a match, and burn the whole thing down on my face. Like, that just seems to be. I'm an Aries. Did I mention I'm an Aries?
Oh, my son's an Aries. So yeah.
So you know that's how we roll, right?
I know.
You know that's how we roll.
Yeah. Are in the process of becoming yoga instructors.
Yes. Be aware that it's a difficult industry to be in, and it'll be interesting to see how the perspective changes. It has been my experience as a Black woman yoga teacher. If you're working in predominantly white spaces, people don't, my experience was, and I'm hoping that this is going to change, that people don't really take it seriously. And I found that what was true in my real world lived experience, that I had to be twice as good or three times as good as the most mediocre teacher to get any kind of recognition. And I found that to be true, but I don't think we have to do that anymore. Show up authentically as yourself in the yoga space, figure out the group of people that you want to teach to, and cultivate that audience. I'm hoping after this all has kind of settled, you're going to see that a lot of people are now actively seeking out teachers of color in support. And I go, don't ever apologize, right? Don't ever, twice as good, exactly, that's her name. Don't ever apologize for showing up authentically. Have your own perspective of the practice and teach to that, because then you'll attract the exact right students that need to hear your message. Be confident, go out there and know that you also have a stake in this, and that you also get to be in the community, because we need more wellness practitioners that are women of color and Black women in particular, because that's what we're missing in these spaces. And then the Black community and the communities of color aren't seeing themselves represented. So I'm grateful for Black teachers who are coming into the space, continue to disrupt the whiteness of the wellness industry.
That's beautiful. And I love your message as well. And the message that I would have, just being a non-Black person of color in yoga and wellness, is be authentic.
Yeah.
Don't feel that you have to change your message. No. You know, Dianne and I have both experienced when we came out with our message, it wasn't popular.
Yeah.
You know, and it wasn't, people weren't flocking.
Yep. Yep.
And I think, but that's not why you do it.
Right.
You do it because that's your message.
Yes.
And that's the point. Be authentic, be you. And we all have very, very, very important perspectives to offer. We always did.
Yes.
But now more than ever.
And you know what I say to everybody? You have a PhD in your lived experience. Yes. So teach from that perspective.
Exactly.
You have a PhD in your lived experience, right? And I think now that people are aware, they are going to be looking for teachers of color. So be ready. And don't be afraid to call people out on their own self-study. So if you're getting any of these marginalized messaging, if you're getting any of these microaggressions, let people know, ooh, that's a microaggression. You might want to do a little self-study, because half the time they don't even know they're saying it.
That right there. That is a truth bomb. Now we have, I don't know whether we can just talk about this. I teach children's yoga, and I'm so worried about the Black children feeling safe in that space.
Oh God, yeah.
And then a few comments were safe, when will we be able to feel that? And then that's the $1 million question. So you, as a mother of 2 Black boys, can you talk to that point?
Yeah, that's a hard thing to do. I mean, in children's yoga, it's going to be the teacher setting the tone, right? If these kids are being very much now, the generation that's coming up now, not the millennials, but the generation after the millennials, which I think my son is 15 and my other son is 13. That's that generation after. I don't know what they are.
I'm confused as well. Yeah, I don't know either.
But they've been growing up with a lot of diversity already, because that's the biggest diverse group to come up, right? So what we're going to see in 2030, I believe, is the flip. That whiteness is no longer going to be the majority. Right. That diversity is going to be the majority. So they're already familiar with a lot of the things that are going on in the world. As long as you're consciously trying to treat everybody with dignity and respect, and, you know, then you don't have to worry about about the space being safe. If you're creating a space where you're going to treat everybody with dignity and respect, and you're going to leave your bias at the door, then they're going to be safe. Right? And if you see a little Black boy behaving badly and a little white boy behaving equally as badly, go ahead and check your own understanding of that, because we have that throughout the school system, where Black boys and Black girls get harsher treatment for doing the same activities or behavior as white children. And it doesn't only just happen with white teachers, it happens with teachers of color and Black teachers too. Yeah. Forbes magazine wrote a whole piece on this in November. Forbes.com, you can look it up, wrote a whole thing on this in November about how Black children and brown children are targeted for the similar behavior. Like we've seen that whole prison to pipeline. So if you are teaching kids, make sure that you are aware of any bias you have against kids of color and see if it shows up. Like when you sit down and you see kids acting up in the space, see if it shows up. And if it does show up for you, implicit bias, thank you, superstar. If it does show up for you, then you need to sit with it and figure it out. And that's how you make it safe. You have to know what your implicit bias is, and you have to catch it as it's happening. And if you're interested in exploring that further, it's not a perfect test. I'm going to say it again. It's not a perfect test, but you can go to the Harvard website and you can take an implicit bias test, and that will give you a surprising assessment of where you are on the spectrum of bias. And don't get your feelings hurt and don't get upset. Think to yourself, this is where I have to do the work. I didn't know I thought this way. I've asked people to do this at my workshops on a Friday night, and then we get back together on a Saturday, and the tears are overwhelming. I understand that this is not who you thought you were, but it just goes to show you how insidious this all is, and that you're not even aware that you're participating. And this is what I like to think about with racism, right? Then when think of racism as rain, okay? When it was raining, we were all outside and we all got wet. So now we have to do the work to figure out what it is we believe, why we believe it, and how we can change that belief. And the way that these things happen is if you treat it as a bad habit. So I used to bite my fingernails, and every time I would find my hands going to my mouth, I had to make the conscious effort that my hands were going into my mouth and I needed to stop doing that. So this is one of those learned behaviors that you're gonna have to unlearn, and it starts with figuring out who you are through the process of self-study. If you want to create spaces, safe spaces for everyone, which I think is a really hard thing to do, because we don't know what will trigger people. We just don't know. Everybody's lived experience is different, so we don't know what the triggers are. But if we can be aware of our own triggers, then we can be so much helpful to the people out in front of us.
And that was, thank you so much. That was just an all-encompassing answer. Yeah. But I think it's also what people don't realize, as we're two women of color who have boys. Yes. And for me, in a very, very white neighborhood, I was so mindful of the school. Yeah. Because I knew that was exactly what would happen to my son. And he's only 2. Right. And I don't want him. He's so confident right now. Yeah. It would break my heart. Yes. You know, but it was interesting because I did tours. There were no, you know, whether it's proximity, location, whatever it is, children of color, but also no teachers of color. That's a huge red flag for me. Yeah. Why is everybody white in this school that everyone thinks is amazing? You know? And I'm so fortunate where he's going now. It's only 2 days a week at the Montessori. There is diversity in the teachers, and there's diversity in the student population, and even in his class, which is really sweet. But these are things that we have to think about that other people don't. Yeah. You know, and you're right. It affects children. It affects their confidence, and it affects how they perceive themselves as individuals, and then in the world around them. Yeah, exactly. And then if the world around them reinforces that they're not worthy, then no space is going to be safe, no matter what. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So before we get kicked off again, I think what I'd love you to do is just tell us any closing comments, statements, anything that you feel, and we've covered a lot, but is there anything, you know, any further messages that you want to give to us all in this moment? You know, my conversation got heated. I called out a lot of people. I spoke to all my experiences, and it's just what is happening to me in this moment, right? And so I am past kind of censoring myself, because I think we need to all speak our truths. So if anything triggered you, or if you felt any kind of way about anything, I would invite you to sit with that. Yeah. You know what I mean? I would invite you to sit with why you feel the way you feel. Right. And those are the thing that I want to leave with is self-study, 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 self-study. And here's the thing. Nobody ever wants to do self-study because it's hard and it's difficult and it's not fun. And honestly, I constantly have to catch myself and like, oh, I just thought this. What's that?
Well, now I have to unpack it. Now, what's this about? Now it's exhausting to be me. So there's all this going on in your head. And remember, your feelings of, you know, your perceived ideas around bias and racism and all those kind of things are reinforced by structural systems. You
Yep.
didn't come to this on your own. Okay. Like you have been taught this over time and time and time again, and it's been reinforced through structural racism. So when you're looking at yourself and you're identifying racist or biased behavior, try not to beat yourself up about it because it's ingrained. Learn that, okay, this is what I learned. Yikes. Okay. How do I unlearn this? And the minute you start to question what you believe and look for ways to disprove what you believe, the faster you will undo this conditioning. So that's the first step, is to figure out, this is what I believe about Black people, but this Black person isn't like that, therefore this can't be true. Do you know what I mean? So you need to do that work of just like unpacking it. Don't, your guilt isn't going to be helpful, and it's going to stop you in your tracks from doing the work that we need to do. It's a mountain that we're all climbing together, and it's going to take some time.
Right.
It's going to be really hard, and it's going to be, you know, it's going to really pull at your heart. But stay the course. We need you to stay the course, because it's the only way that we are going to get to the end, and that we're going to end this for good. Like we have to continue doing the hard work, and it totally sucks. I get it. And you're going to step in it, and it's going to be gross, and it's going to be all these things. But if we just keep chipping away at it, it has to go away. I have to believe that.
Yes.
Otherwise, I give up on the whole damn thing.
Right. Absolutely. And but I have to say as well, Dianne, please don't apologize.
Oh, no.
Now is, what I mean is, though, I don't even, the point, and this is what I've been saying to people, it is not up to any of us to be telling Black people and Black women in particular in yoga and wellness or beyond how to react, what to say, what to feel. And I've seen that, right?
Oh, yeah.
Where people are doing that whole like, oh, well, she shouldn't have. Who the hell are any of us to be telling anybody that is Black, quite frankly, anywhere in the world, what to say, how to feel, how to react? Yeah. So I invite every single person that is tuned in to this call today, please share it with your friends. It'll be available for 24 hours. To listen to the wisdom that Dianne is dropping, and understand that when you hear other people trying to do the blame game, right? Because they, a Black woman or Black man or whatever is saying something that makes them uncomfortable, to just pause and to listen. Yeah. Because now is the time for, that is how you put your yoga practice into action. 100%.
100%. I think, thank you for that. So, yes, thank you, Laura. Share. Laura Mac Yoga. Share. And don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Now's the time. We're gonna crack our hearts wide open, and we're gonna put on our boots, and we're gonna just dig, and we got to keep going. Like, I just don't want to lose momentum on this, because guess what? This is the revolution, and the revolution will be live streamed.
Right, exactly. The revolution is here.
It is.
It's here. And like we were saying, now is there is no neutral.
No.
This is about humanity. And for those of us that are in yoga and wellness, this is yoga. Yeah. Period. You know, this is yoga. Now is the time. And the yogic scriptures talk about this. Yeah. Now is the time to not be just crying in the corner and centering the conversation on yourself, and to understand that if you're doing those things, that's okay. But that's part of your learning. Yes. Right? That's 100%. Part of the practice of yoga.
100%.
You know, and how we actually get to me, until we can all breathe fully, none of us can breathe fully.
100%.
Because that's yoga. That is collective consciousness.
Okay.
So thank you all so much. Dianne, my sister. I mean, this was, beyond.
Thank you. I knew when we had our pre-conversation in the car that this was going to be lit. Like, I just knew that it was going to be next level.
But you have dropped so much truth and wisdom. I just can't.
Appreciate that.
I just can't. So thank you so much.
My pleasure.
You are light. You are a force, and you have been, and I stressed that at the beginning, you've been doing this work for over two decades. You've been doing yoga since you were 3, like you shared with us.
Yeah.
And thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you for sharing your
And
platform with me and for doing the work of elevating voices of people who look like me. I feel a profound sisterhood with you. And I hope we won't have this one kumbaya moment and never connect again. So let's.
That's never going to happen. Janessa and I have already been talking about you and some of our other kind of, you know, projects and things like that. So
this is not the last
this
we've
is the beginning.
All right.
This is the beginning. So thank you all. Share this with your friends. That's what you can do. Listen and learn from Black voices in yoga and wellness. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Have yourself a lovely rest of your Sunday. Go get some sunshine. Go do some self-care and digest, digest, digest.
Right, digest. Thank you all.